E-Biology class, Fatima Convent High School, myself, Dipali. Chapter 14, Natural Resources. Moving to the next biogeochemical cycle, nitrogen cycle. As I told you in the previous cycle, you should be knowing what component is being cycled, on what pathway it is being cycled, and what are the processes involved in the cycle, and who are the factors which are moving the component from one form to the other form. Now, the word nitrogen cycle says that we are moving nitrogen from one sphere to the other sphere. Now, let us see what it is about. Nitrogen gas makes about 78% of our atmosphere, and nitrogen is also a part of many molecules essential to life like proteins, nucleic acid, DNA and RNA, and some vitamins. Nitrogen is found in other biochemical important compounds such as alkaloids and urea too. Nitrogen is thus an essential nutrient for all life forms, and life would be simple if all these life forms could use atmospheric nitrogen directly. However, other than a few forms of bacteria, life forms are not able to convert the comparatively inert nitrogen molecule into forms like nitrates and nitrites, which can be taken up and used to make the required molecules. These nitrogen fixing bacteria may be free living or in association with other species of dicot plants like legumes. Most commonly, the nitrogen fixing bacteria are found in the roots of legumes. Generally, the plants which gives us pulses are called legumes. Is a special structure called root nodules. So these nitrogen fixing bacteria are present in root nodules of the legumes. Other than these bacteria, the only other manner in which the nitrogen molecule is converted to nitrates and nitrites is by a physical process. During lightning, the high temperature and pressure created in the air converts nitrogen into oxides of nitrogen. These oxides of nitrogen dissolve in water to give nitric and nitrous acid and fall on land along with rain. They are then utilized by life forms. What happens to the nitrogen once it is converted into the forms that we can be taken up and used to make nitrogen containing molecules? Then plant generally take up nitrates and nitrites and convert them into amino acids which are used to make proteins. Some other biochemical pathways are used to make the other complex compounds containing nitrogen. This protein and other complex compounds are subsequently consumed by animals. Once the animal or the plant dies, other bacteria in the soil convert the various compounds of nitrogen back into nitrates and nitrites. So you can see the nitrogen cycle here, where these nitrites or different types of bacteria convert nitrates and nitrites into elemental nitrogen. Thus, there is a nitrogen cycle in nature in which nitrogen passes from its elemental form into the atmosphere into simple molecules in the soil and water, which gets converted to complex molecules in living beings and back again to simple nitrogen molecules in the atmosphere. So this is the pathway of the cycle. where it starts from atmosphere, goes to the lithosphere and hydrosphere, and then to the biosphere and back to the atmosphere. That is the pathway of the nitrogen moving around. Now let us see in this diagram. Now the atmospheric nitrogen, that is the pathway is from atmosphere to the lithosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere and back again to the atmosphere. So you can say the pathway of nitrogen cycle is atmosphere. From atmosphere it will go to lithosphere, hydrosphere, which is reverse than the water cycle, then to biosphere, and from biosphere again to the atmosphere. This is how the nitrogen is circulating. Now which are the agents which are causing this movement? Then we have the nitrogen fixing bacteria. They are called as rhizobium bacteria or azobacters in the soil or blue-green algae. These are the three organisms which can fix direct nitrogen from the atmosphere, and even the lightning process can fix the nitrogen. Now this bacteria, after converting it into nitrogen compounds, they mix it with the soil by the process of ammonification, and then by nitrification again it gets converted into atmospheric nitrogen. This is done by pseudomonas, which are called as denitrifying bacteria. So let us see what happens to the processes involved here. Then we have first the nitrification or nitrogen assimilation. Then that is converted into ammonification, nitrification, and denitrification. It's simple. Here N2, which is nitrogen, is converted into NH3 form. Then it is either converted into N2O or NO3 and then back into N2. This is how the cycle starts for nitrogen. Now let us see how this cycle occurs. So here the atmospheric nitrogen is fixed by either the nitrifying bacteria, that is rhizobium bacteria, azobacter or blue-green algae. These are the three bacteria which could convert this: rhizobium, azobacter and blue-green algae. They can fix the free nitrogen and convert it into nitrogen compounds, and even the lightning, where reacts with free nitrogen and makes nitrogen oxide, that is NO2 or NO3, that is nitrites and nitrates. Now this is entering into the biosphere by plants and animals, and even by adding fertilizers having ammonia, that is ammonification of these NO2 and NO3 occurs where it gets converted into NH2, NH3 or NH4 plus. Now this again by the process of denitrification and nitrification gets converted into free nitrogen. So this is how the circulation of nitrogen occurs in the atmosphere. Now let us see the next cycle, that is carbon cycle. Carbon is found in various forms on the earth. It occurs in the elemental form as diamond and graphite. It is combined state. It is found as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, as carbonates and hydrogen carbonate salts in various minerals, while all life forms are used as carbon containing molecules like proteins, carbohydrates, fats, nucleic acids and vitamins. The endoskeleton and the exoskeleton of the various animals are also formed by carbonate salts. Endo means the bones which are inside the body like we in human beings, and exo means having outside the body like a snail or a conch or a shell. They have the hard covering outside their body. They are called exoskeleton. Carbon is incorporated into the life forms through the basic process of photosynthesis, which is performed in the presence of sunlight for by all life forms that contains chlorophyll. This process converts carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to dissolve or dissolved in water into glucose molecules, and these glucose molecules are either converted into other substances or used to provide energy for synthesis of other biological important molecules. Utilization of glucose to provide energy to living things involves the process of respiration. In this in which oxygen may or may not be used and get converted into glucose back into carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide then comes back to the atmosphere. Another process that adds to the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is the process of combustion, where fuels are burned to provide energy for various needs like heating, cooking, transportation, and industrial processes. In fact, the percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is said to have doubled since the Industrial Revolution, when human beings started burning fossil fuels as a very large scale. Carbon, like water, is thus cycled repeatedly through different forms by the various physical and chemical activities. So, as we know now, we are talking about carbon. Then the component being circulated is carbon. So, it is known as carbon cycle. The pathway is from atmosphere to hydrosphere and lithosphere and biosphere and back to atmosphere. And the processes involved are photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration, combustion. Now here, the atmospheric carbon dioxide enters into the lithosphere or hydrosphere or in the biosphere with the help of process of photosynthesis performed by plants. These plants release oxygen and release carbon dioxide during respiration and take in oxygen during respiration. But during photosynthesis, they take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. So during that exchange, we get the atmospheric CO2 enters into the biosphere. Even in the water, the carbonates are present, which are forms of carbon, and in the lithosphere, the fossil fuels and the burning of fossil fuels, petroleum products, etc., are forms of carbon. So these all forms are then again burnt and converted to decompose this carbon dioxide and oxygen to back into the atmosphere with the help of the process of combustion or various other processes. So you can summarize this cycle as photosynthesis in plants occurs by absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. This is converted into glucose and other organic compounds by plants. Fossil fuels are a form of carbons as they are formed due to decay of dead organisms deep under the earth's crust or at the ocean floor. These fossil fuels are extracted and burned to obtain energy. This process releases carbon dioxide as a byproduct along with heat into the atmosphere. Carbon occurs as limestone and marble in form of carbonates in the rock which wears and withers of the rocks. Carbonates are gradually converted into carbon dioxide. This is done by the action of microbes present in the soil and get by penetration of roots of plants into the rocks. The sediments of shelled animals from rocks at the bottom of the sea. Corals also take out carbon dioxide from sea water and form their calcareous skeleton. Carbonate rocks are also used to seepage of carbon dioxide rich water into the earth's interior. Due to the action of aerobic respiration, the certain organisms in sewage treatment plants and within the digested tract of ruminant animals, methane gas is produced, and this carbon dioxide produced is by respiration of plants and animals. So, it reaches back into the atmosphere after the completion of the cycle. Now there is another topic related to this carbon cycle which is called as greenhouse effect. We are very much familiar about the property of carbon dioxide to absorb the heat and retain the heat of the sun. Recall the reading taken by you under third activity 14.1. Heat is trapped by glass and hence the temperature inside a glass enclosure will be much higher than the surrounding. This phenomena was used to create an enclosure where tropical plants could be kept warm during the winter in the colder climates. Such enclosures are called as greenhouse, which are used for agricultural purpose and for floricultural purposes. But our earth is a natural greenhouse. How? Now greenhouse have also lent their name to their atmospheric phenomena. Some gases prevent the escape of heat from the earth. An increase in the percentage of such gases in the atmosphere could cause the average temperature to increase worldwide and is called as greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases. An increase in the carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere could cause more heat to be retained by the atmosphere and lead to global warming. So, this is what is greenhouse effect. Find out what the consequences of global warming would be. Also find out the names of some other greenhouse gases. That would be your activity. Thank you for now.